I think this is class 211 on the Golden Doves. Yes, we're on page 127. Um, we were discussing how for the post-structuralists, there is no absolute meaning, and language is fragmented in the sense that it can't complete itself. You need something outside the language to complete it. Um, and that was in opposition to uh, Borges's mirrors, where language is reflecting an absolute truth. There is an absolute truth outside of language, whatever that you want to call that absolute truth, and the mirrors reflect that absolute truth. The language is like a mirror that reflects the absolute truth. The mirrors are imperfect, though, of course, because mirrors distort. So even when the mirror is reflecting objective reality, the mirror is a subjective mirror, right? And that's what we're dealing with now. Um, one final point, while the post-structuralists attempt to suggest that there is no, absolute truth at all, um, we reject that, but we also do agree that post-structuralism makes a point in that there are some things that are beyond normal description where language can't describe things. That's true. There are some things which language can't describe, and that we refer to as esoterics, or the sodot of the Torah. Okay, let's now continue. Again, page 127. Rather, one may say that language is essentially reflective, right? Like a mirror. The distorting quality of language, it is what makes knowledge possible, because you can't understand everything. You can't have absolute clarity as to the reality outside your mind, right? That's why Shlomo HaMelech says, "Kol hadevarim yegi'im lo yuchal ish ledaber," right? What he means by that is that, and actually, let me interject for a second. The pasuk is in Kohelet. It's in Perek Aleph, pasuk Chet, I think. And the pasuk says, "Kol hadevarim yegi'im." Words, they they're tired in the sense that, again, a word distorts. It can't capture reality fully, right? Lo yuchal ish ledaber. And because of that, when you try to speak about something, you're not really speaking about the truth itself, the objective truth, to the extent that there is an objective truth. Let's even put that on the side. You really can't speak about it. You can speak about certain aspects of things as your mind comprehends those aspects of the things that you're talking about. Lo tisma ayin elot, even when you see. What do you see? You see. Well, no, you don't. You see a particular portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that your eye is designed to see those particular colors in this particular way. Is that the reality? There's other wavelengths that we don't see. So, which is the correct seeing, right? So that's the idea here. But it's the distorting quality of language that makes knowledge possible. Because if language didn't distort, then we would have no knowledge whatsoever, because you can never capture the entire system of reality. So all we can do is distort through our words, and then we can understand the distorted words. W.B. Yeats, I think it's pronounced Yeats. He was an Irish um, poet, and I think it was in the 19th century, if I'm not mistaken. So what he does, and I've read some of his works, they're very difficult to understand. I gotta be honest. I didn't particularly understand it. Didn't particularly enjoy or understand what he wrote, but he does explore complex ideas about language, about perception, how we perceive about knowledge, and the connection between these two things. And he points out how language has a distorting quality, right? So on the one hand, it allows us to know, but on the other hand, it allows us to know in an imperfect and distorted fashion, right? Because ultimately, language is a mediator. How do we perceive things? We perceive the language mediates our ability to understand, right? It's through the words, the symbols of the words, the structures, how we put the words together that allows us to structure the reality around us. So W.B. Yeats expressed the seminal point. Okay, so he has a following poem, and again, I didn't write this poem. I did not write this poem, so forgive me. But here's what he writes: Empty eyeballs knew. So here, mamash like Shlomo HaMelech, lo tisba ayin lirot. The phrase "empty eyeballs" is a metaphor for a kind of detached, hollow perception. So you're seeing, but your seeing is devoid of true insight, right? So again, Shlomo HaMelech, lo yuchal ish leraber, lo tisba ayin lirot, right? That's empty eyeballs knew. That knowledge increases unreality. So this is kind of a paradox. So the more you know, the less you know, right? But the more knowledge we have, instead of increasing our closeness to reality, it increases our distance from it. Because as we accumulate more information and more understanding, we also create layers of abstraction and layers of interpretation. Um, and these abstractions and interpretations, they kind of distance us from the objective world again. If there is even an objective world, right? So that's what he means. That knowledge increases on reality because the knowledge that you have in your mind, the perception of the reality, well, that knowledge, it actually takes you further from reality. Um, a good example is Donald Trump. Um, the pathological hatred that people have towards him is almost comical, but that's a great idea. Like you you perceive him through these layers of abstractions. He's a racist, a fascist, Nazi, whatever they call him. I don't even know what they call him. He cares about money and nothing else. He cares about power. So all these things they distort. Nobody can actually objectively, or most people can't objectively look at Donald Trump anymore because they're so obsessively hateful of him. So you see how knowledge, so they have knowledge given to you, right? And this knowledge creates unreality, right? It's very interesting. I thought that was a good example because, well, maybe it's not a good example because there may be some people watching this who hate Donald Trump. So, for example, when they believe the Earth was flat, so your perception of everything is through the idea of a flat Earth, right? Or the Earth is at the center of the universe. Your perception, how you process information, is based on these abstractions. Maybe that would be a better example. So again, empty eyeballs knew that knowledge increases on reality, that mirror on mirror, mirrored is all the show. A mirror reflecting a mirror, reflecting a mirror is all there really is. That's great. That really is great. Infinite regression, where each reflection is a copy of another reflection, endlessly repeating, and there is no, well, I mean, there is an original. Again, if you believe there's an objective reality, there's an original. But what this is saying is that the world where everything we perceive is just a reflection of something else with no access to an ultimate unmediated reality. Every perception of reality we have is mediated by our senses, even what we hear and how we hear, right? So we think we see reality. No, there's our senses that allow us to mediate reality. So ultimately, all there is a mirror. And then a mirror reflects the mirror. So I'm talking to you now, and your mirror captures something, and then and then another person will capture something in the mirror, right? So it's all an illusory spectacle, right? An endless series of representations. All right, we'll stop here.